together provides for a temporary permit that basically could stay in place until there's either a transfer of title to the house or a significant construction being 50% or more of the replacement cost of the building on the property. That's a typical measure. It's not what every community does, but it's in fact, even on our existing village ordinance, one of our tests for being able to replace non-conforming is 50% of the value. So I thought it made sense to maybe borrow that concept and use it here as well. And on the transfer of a title to the property, I tried to suggest some exceptions for situations that we wouldn't really think of as being a real transfer to a third party and a real sell to a third party, such as a transfer that's purely for estate planning purposes, or that would be made into a trust or a land trust or between family members. So that's the basic concept of the section.
And I haven't received any comments from the board.
Well, thinking about it, the one thing that I would like to see, should we decide to have some sort of a grandfathering, and I think we should, is that every person who has an existing deer fence needs to come forward to the village, and every one of those existing deer fences needs to be inspected to make sure that it's not nailed to trees, to make sure that it's not blocking waterways. Because these fences were put up without any oversight. And I know that there have been a couple of cases where we've had problems with fences that have blocked flowage. And I know that there are cases where deer fences are nailed into trees, which, although we're purporting to protect the woods by putting up the deer fences, we're basically damaging the trees by nailing things into them. So if we do grandfather these fences, I would like every one of them to be noted, recorded as those fences.
They have to come in for a permit.
And they have to come in for a permit, but there has to be an inspection as well.
Right.
And I think that has to be part of the ordinance too.
Hold on, question. It's in here.
That there's an inspection, I can see that.
Well, if they come in for a permit, there's got to be an inspection.
Yes and no. They can come in and say, here's the existing fence, and here's a drawing of the fence, and we say, okay. No, I want the permit process to be, the inspection process to be part of the permitting
All
process.
right, one of the other things I also wanted to make sure is in the ordinance, if we do pass something like this, is disclosure. When the house goes up for sale, it's going to have to be disclosed that the fence has to be in compliance. There's nothing that says that you can't replace the deer fence with a real fence, but you have to tell the buyer before he buys the house that this has to be done. So I would like that in there also. Any other comments?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to back up perhaps a little bit. First of all, I'd like to thank the Plan Commission and David Neeblen for doing a really exhaustive job. Five sessions over 5 months. And I attended all of them except the last one. Not a difficult assignment. Thank you. I'd like to back up a step. As you know, I'm the chairman of the Ecology Committee. And I've taken a little bit different tack on this, and that is part of my interest in the village personally, and certainly part of my interest as involved with the Ecology Committee, is the health of the woods. And so we drafted a document. I had a large part in writing that document, a white paper to the Board of Trustees, to try to put before us that if you look at the professional and scientific literature, there's no question that there is a recognition that deer have a substantial impact on woodland environments. These studies have been done in Connecticut, in Colorado, in Pennsylvania, nationally and internationally for that matter, with other forms of relatives of deer. They've also been done regionally. Chicago Wilderness has been very active in promoting woodland health, and they document the effect of deer. And locally, we hear the same thing. Urban Forest Management, our village forester, wrote a white paper in 1996. He cataloged the problems here in the village. He cataloged the problems with our village hall garden. Applied Ecological Services, they come to the same conclusion with their scientific work. Our neighbor in Ryerson, they manage deer because they feel their charter is to preserve the woodland, and so they manage it by culling. And then the last one, the Plan Commission asked Marty Jones, the representative from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, to come and answer questions, and he came to the same conclusion. When asked specifically by a resident on Orange Brace, what would be the consequence? What do you think would be the consequence if we took the deer fences down? Would that improve the woodland in the area where the deer fences don't exist now? And he said he didn't think so. And then the follow-up question was, what would you think would happen to those properties that were exclosed if we removed the exclosure? And he said, I would think they would look like their neighbors, that they would be equally brown. So what I'd like to suggest is that we recognize, the literature I think is unequivocal, that we recognize that deer and healthy woodlands are in opposition to each other unless you impose some form of management. What kind of management? Well, there aren't many options, unfortunately. We would all love to have options on how we can manage deer. Some of the residents have chosen to put a barrier between the deer and their property. You know, we all came to this village because we love the natural ambience. Some of us came here not recognizing the difference between buckthorn and an oak tree. Others have come here and they've learned about the woods and they want to preserve and in some cases even restore the woodland environment to what it was 30 and 50 and 100 years ago. And they've taken the only action they can to prevent the deer from browsing their property. And so they put up a 7-foot deer fence because that's what everybody recommends, that you should have 7 feet. I guess my concern about the thrust of the fence ordinance is it comes from a couple of different directions. One is that there hasn't been a recognition that there is value to the village to preserve these woodlands.
That's correct.
That these residents are doing something to our benefit. And then the second thing is that these residents have paid out of their own pocket to put up these deer fences. These deer fences aren't going to provide security or privacy. They certainly aren't beautiful. There's only one purpose, and they've paid for these things. And yet, we seem to think that we have to, we'll grandfather these for the foreseeable future. God forbid that the house changes property, changes hands rather. We don't recognize the benefit of these fences to the residents and to the village in general. And so I guess, although I think this is an improvement to grandfather the deer fences for the foreseeable future until the property changes hands or until a substantive maintenance has to be done. But to me, that doesn't go to the heart of the issue. The comprehensive plan recognizes the value of the woodland environment. The Woodland Protection Ordinance recognizes the value of this woodland and preserving it. What's the point of having a tree replacement program if you have to girdle the tree with mesh and take care until it gets high enough that it's beyond the deer browse?